and I like science.
I'm Rene Jimenez, and I like art.
And we'll see in a moment why the two aren't so different. Science.
It's probably not.
What do you think it is? We all know science has big impact on the cars we drive, the food in our stores, phones in our pockets.
But science can be intimidating, and today, most people think
That only geniuses can do science, and that's dead
they
wrong.
have about science.
There are a number of misconceptions people hold about science that
Make them think that only geniuses can do that. And so there are three things.
I want you to remember today to clear up those misconceptions. Number one, science is not a subject, it's a process. Many people will take a scientific subject that they don't like in high school, be it chemistry, biology, physics, and because they don't like it, they assume that they don't like anything to do with science whatsoever, when really what it is they don't like is the subject matter. Science is more than any of those things, because science is the application of reason and logic to learn more about our world. It is a mindset, and it can be used to pursue any passion. I've always been passionate about learning how the world works. When I was young, I got this big visual encyclopedia for Christmas, and I loved it. It's filled with fascinating pictures of lasers and crystals and chemicals, and all these things that scientists did in their mysterious laboratories.
So I've always been driven to learn more about what things are and how things work.
I've worked with artificial intelligence, water purification, robots, just to name a few. I'm always trying to learn new subjects, because science is about learning new things. Most recently, I've fallen in love with a subject called quantum computing. Quantum computing is a lot like regular computing, really, except it takes advantage of cutting-edge physics to make computers run even faster, solve even bigger problems that have an even bigger impact on our lives.
Yep.
It can tell us how to better distribute food so more people get fed. It can tell us how to distribute power.
And our electric grid, so that more homes have light with fewer blackouts. These big underlying factors of our society that we rarely even stop to consider in our daily lives, but which often have their roots in science. Which brings me to point number two.
Point number two is that sometimes
We need to teach ourselves scientific principles that don't directly interest us. We live at a unique point in history where, because of the amount of man-made things, the amount of artificial stuff that surrounds us on a daily basis, if we don't understand certain principles, we understand
less
about our everyday world than people did hundreds of years ago. And that's unacceptable. Even the smallest details you rarely consider. Corn. Corn only used to grow an inch long in nature. The reason it's so big today is because we applied the scientific principle of artificial selection and evolution. Selective breeding, we created a crop that is larger so it can feed more people, that is less prone to disease, that uses resources more efficiently. Think of how many people are fed because of those principles. Think of the kind of impact that has on our lives. And we've been talking about big applications of science today, big things.
But we can't forget rule number three.
And rule number three is that you don't have to be a genius to do science. Science is for everybody. Science is about acquiring new knowledge, not simply possessing old knowledge. So creativity and curiosity are far more important than any simply memorized knowledge of what's already known. There's something I want you to think about today. I want you to think about everything you use today that did not exist just 2 years ago. It exists now because of science. Think about the smartwatch you got for your birthday. Think about your car that runs more efficiently.
Anything, and I think you'll find
Science has a bigger impact on your life than you ever thought.
For a very long time, I was amazed by the pictures that moved across the screen and smashed each other with frying pans. And after a while, I got tired of just watching, so I started to try and draw them. After I began to draw, it just became a regular part of my life. And even longer after that, I just forgot that I even knew how to draw. Until I hit middle school, when I hit middle school, I didn't move on to advanced art because I was only good at drawing. And this made me really think about what is art, and specifically where is it? Well, I'm assuming that most of you answered something like drawing, or painting, or playing an instrument. And that, to the second question, most of you answered something like, well, I can't see much of art anywhere. Some of you. And, well, to me, what the definition of art is basically something new that you imagined yourself. Whether it be the little tune that you hum all the time, or just the different way that you draw your smiley faces. And art, where is it? It's everywhere. Imagine a world void of all color and uniquity. That's a world without art. Now imagine a world with anything you want. It's a world with plenty of art, and I'm sure maybe some of you are asking, how is that a world filled with art? Well, because art is anything, it's not just drawing and painting. It's making a building, writing a poem, making gardens, and the list goes on. Now that you've seen through my eyes, go through a regular day at school. Go through math, English, history. Whether it be the beautiful pattern created by the Fibonacci sequence, the imagery used in virtually all poems, or the detailed history shown in the paintings that we have in all museums. Then we get to science, which in a way is its own kind of art.
Art and science are often portrayed as polar opposites of one another. But in reality, they're quite closely related. Art inspires science.
Science discovers how the world is.
Art takes that science and uses it to create the world that it imagined.
It inspires us to investigate the world to find that dream.
Art is a way of dreaming. It allows us to imagine the world the way we want it to be.
Famous author Oscar Wilde once said that life imitates art far more than art imitates life.
But sometimes it is science which inspires art. 3D printing, which has been in the news a lot recently, is a scientific technology that uses heated plastic or metal or other material to create previously impossible forms.
At first, 3D printing was just made to help companies develop prototypes more rapidly. Now it's being used to make wonderful works of art.
Entire dresses made out of intricate interlocking rings, masterpieces of elegance and complexity, entire kinetic sculptures have been printed in one take with this incredible technology, and it's arguable that none of them would have existed without it.
And the creativity goes on, with scientific experiments being some of the most creative inventions of mankind.
They're often novel, elegant, and unprecedented.
There's a material called graphene made out of atom-thick sheets of carbon.
It is so strong that if you had a piece of it, just as thin as cling wrap, the stuff you put over your old food, it could support the weight of an entire elephant on an area the size of a pencil tip.
The only problem was how to get a layer of this wonderful substance. Well, in 2004, a pair of scientists at the University of Manchester figured out how.
Imagine for a moment the amount of technology and resources at the disposal of these two men.
Their solution was to take a piece of graphite, which is different from what you might find in a pencil, and put a piece of scotch tape on top of it, and then remove it. And there it was, a creative and simple solution.
Ultimately, science is nothing more than knowledge if it remains unapplied. It is up to those original dreams of art to apply science to create the world that it imagined. And in the end, science and art work together to make the world a better place. We'll leave you with one last thing to consider, one thing to think about.
We want you to think about the most interesting thing you heard today.
That's the inspiration part.
Whether that be quantum computing, 3D printing, or maybe something that we didn't even mention.
Then, look into it. Why was it first created? How has it evolved? How might it evolve in the future? That's the discovery part.
Then, use that information. Share it with a friend. Conduct an experiment. Or even just think about it. That's the application part.
Finally, repeat.